It just feels like such a perfect amalgamation of everything that goes into filmmaking that I couldn't even begin to understand how any of it works. And he's got his hands and his head like pressed up against. It's terrifying for so many reasons. He's defying gravity. It makes the door look like the ceiling since it's at the top of the frame. It makes everything feel and look so unnatural.
Different angles that are used, the quick cuts, the suspense, each individual like movement is. I love how.
First of all, the interesting thing about it is it's actually very polarizing because some people think that it's over choreographed. He slowly starts to realize that he is unbreakable and that he's never even gotten hurt or gotten ill. And yeah, this is an absolutely genius movie about what would actually happen if.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Movement Theories podcast. This is a new season and this season is going to be the guest season, and hopefully that's just how this podcast is going to run from now on. So we've done 8 episodes previously and they've basically just been me and Kaitlin talking about things we're interested in. But now we have guests, and today we're joined by Joe Burren, otherwise known as Cameraman Joe.
Yes.
And what are you here to talk about, Joe?
I'm here to talk about movies and films because obviously this is a drama podcast,
Yes.
and it's a little facet of drama that I'm quite knowledgeable on.
Yes.
Shall we tell them about our history with this episode?
Okay, so this episode, we've got a little bit of a story, and it is completely on me. Joe came yesterday, and we filmed an hour-and-a-half episode of the same topic, and we got to the end, and I noticed that the mics weren't plugged in, and we just had no audio.
We've filmed this entire episode already.
Yeah. So that was a dress run, and now you're going to get the proper professional thing. Joe's not going to get those 7 hours of his life back.
Run the clip of Josh realising that the mics weren't plugged in.
For those on Spotify, you'd have to head over to YouTube to watch that if you wanted. So we want to play a thing called Desert Island Disc.
Yes.
Do you want to explain how that works and then, start?
Well, Desert Island Discs was a part of a little interview segment on a radio show from quite a while ago, I believe. I can't remember which radio show it was, but basically they always had guests on, and the first thing they would always ask them is, if you were trapped on a desert island for, I guess, the rest of your life, what 3 CDs would you want with you? But obviously this is a film-centric episode and we're not doing CDs, we're not doing movies.
So, do you want to start or shall I start with your one of your first choices? Are we doing this in order of like this is my number 1 or this is just A1? Because I haven't actually ranked mine.
I don't think you need to do it in order. I probably am unconsciously doing it in order.
As we discovered from yesterday, my ones clearly go from me as a child, me as a teenager, me now as an adult.
Yeah, you have a nice progression with yours.
We should. I'll do it the same way. I'll do it as a progression.
But anyway, yes, my first one, as obviously I told you yesterday, is
You're enjoying that lemonade.
sorry, building suspense. Is Stanley Kubrick's 1980 horror masterpiece, The Shining.
Yeah, good.
And I have a big personal history with this movie, and I must have watched it more than I think any other movie. It's got to be like 15 times.
Which
I think.
to me is crazy because I think the movie I think I actually might have watched the most is Mamma Mia. Kaitlin is very happy about that, but it's been many years since I did watch it. My mum and I watched it tons as a child. However, the ones that I've watched the most since then have only got to be like 4 times. So to me, watching a movie 4 times is significantly a lot. So 15 is just crazy in my mind.
In all fairness, most movies I do watch only once. But it's only if I particularly like a movie, I'll watch it more than once. But yeah, The Shining. Not only do I think it's incredibly rewatchable for all the details that it has. You always see something new each time you watch it. But I also just think it's a genuine masterpiece. It's my favourite movie ever, and it's one that I almost don't want... I almost don't like talking about it because I don't even think it's one that I can accurately analyse, because it just feels like such a perfect amalgamation of everything that goes into filmmaking that I couldn't even begin to understand how any of it works. feel like I might be overselling it a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's a damn good movie
But
that I have a big personal history with.
The genre. So actually, I'm gonna do like a guess from the comments for me in a second. But for you, like horror and scary movies is kind of the genre that you're probably most attracted to.
I would say so. I wouldn't say I'm a particular horror fan, but if I had to pick out one genre of film that I'm most interested in, it would be horror, just because of how all the little subgenres can all be so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Before I say my first one and the ones after that, they kind of all link. Have a little guess. If you want to put it in the comments, put it in the comments. Of what genre I kind of enjoy the most. Especially for those that know me, I'll be interested to see what you say. And then you're about to find out. One little bit thing about The Shining. Obviously, this is the Movement Theories podcast.
Yes.
There's that one shot that we talked about with him up against the wall. Do you want to talk about that shot?
Yeah, relating it obviously back to the thing of this podcast being movement. Something I feel that film is very good at is enhancing actors. I feel like that's honestly one of the main purposes of film, and obviously one of those facets would be how actors move.
Yeah.
And there's one shot in The Shining where this is where Jack Nicholson's character has gone full blown crazy, and he's been locked in like this walk-in fridge, and he's trying to convince someone on the other side to let him out, and he's got his hands and his head like pressed up against the door. Now that pose in and of itself isn't necessarily scary. If you just saw someone doing that, you probably think they're a bit weird. But you wouldn't think it's immediately scary.
If you're walking down the street and you see that, you'd just be like, is that person okay?
Yeah.
But
Kubrick
obviously
films his face from the floor looking up at him. And that is... It's terrifying for so many reasons, because it makes Jack Nicholson's body look terrifying. It doesn't look like a pose that someone should be able to hold.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And also the way he orientates the frame, it almost looks like he's defying gravity. It makes the door look like the ceiling, since it's at the top of the frame. It makes everything feel and look so unnatural, which is why I think film is just such a good way to enhance movement in just the way it can be presented.
So, if we go on to one of my choices,
Yes.
And you're about to find out what genre it is, which it's very me. So, one of my choices, childhood classic, one of my favourites, and it would be Narnia. I'm going to pick the first one, Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe.
Banging.
And that comes into the genre of fantasy and fantasy worlds, fantasy lands, which I absolutely adore, because I like the escape. I like feeling like I'm in that universe or whatever. And I think, I mean, this world's cool and all, but if I could be in Narnia or some of the worlds of the other things that I talk about, I'd take that. Would be banging. It would be amazing. And so, movement-wise, from Narnia, like there is actually quite a lot of fighting scenes. Obviously,
Yeah.
kind of all of the. It's not like guns, obviously, but it's they have some proper kind of stunts and fighting. And I think fight choreography in films, again, like you said about it being filmed, enhancing what you watch. When you see things like in real life, like it looks cool. Like, don't get me wrong, when you see like videos of people practicing, it's like, wow, that's awesome. But when you just see it from different angles that are used, the quick cuts, the suspense, some maybe fairly kind of normal fight scenes with all the sound effects and the noise going on can just be brought out to life so much. I remember watching, this bit of a sidetrack, some of the Star Wars behind the scenes of them practicing with poles and doing the fighting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is actually really impressive, the amount of effort and how much they have to learn to do some of the just incredible scenes that us as fans, I'm a big Star Wars fan, that we get to watch. So I was watching the Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of, I mean, the very well-known classic scene between them, and I was watching how they like rehearsed kind of doing some of that. And I mean, just each individual like movement is, I love how choreography as a skill is just used in so much that I think we sometimes forget. We've got an episode being recorded later on today about wrestling
Yeah.
and about choreography being used in that, and I think it's super interesting.
Was that the fight scene you're referring to? Is that the one between Anakin and Obi-Wan at the very end of Revenge of the Sith? That fight scene is actually... Well, first of all, the interesting thing about it is it's actually very polarizing, because some people think that it's over choreographed.
Really?
To the point where... because it's so complicated with all the beats they need to hit that they think it doesn't look like a fight, it looks like a dance. I disagree with this.
I disagree
because of context behind it. In the context, this is two. I'm going to sound a little bit nerdy here, but two master Jedi who are at the height of their mental ability. So I feel like that fight scene really makes sense why it's so complicated, and the music in that is so good.
I think music can be so underrated in how it just can completely change what you're watching, just the atmosphere and the mood. I mean, if you took away, I see clips all the time where people like take away the music from big scenes in different films and just how funny it looks of the characters doing the things.
I think there are so many scenes that I always point to in movies that are scenes that really like emotionally impact me or really impress me for something they did. I've found recently that I can attribute almost all of that to the music that's being used in the scene. If you have a good score to go along with your movie, that goes a long way to really emotionally resonating with the audience.
Yeah, I think I've only ever got very emotional for watching a film a couple times. One was a TV series that we were watching called Sweet Tooth, and
Never heard of that.
it was you should watch it. I don't actually know if it would be your taste, but
What's it about?
I can tell you. I can tell you
bit.
later. I'll tell you later.
Alright.
But I actually I think it must have been the music in the scene that we ended up watching. But I fully bawled my
Josh
eyes.
wouldn't let me look at him because he was so...
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't...
Were you ugly crying?
I wasn't allowed to turn around.
Yeah.
Well, so was I. So,
But that's normal for you. Like for me, that's
So rude.
Yeah, Kaitlin.
Why do I take this?
Josh is an Andrew Tate stan. Men don't cry.
No, I cry a little bit, but not much, and I don't know why. But I just don't.
I'm jealous of that. I've cried once at a movie, and it was when I was like 10, and I've always been searching for movies since that could potentially make me cry. I want to cry at a movie.
I think, well, actually, this wasn't a movie. This is a series. I think for movies, it's a little bit tougher because obviously they're only like an hour, 2 hours, and I don't get enough time to necessarily build an emotional connection. But when I watched a TV series, we were like several seasons in. Like we'd been watching it like straight for weeks, and I don't know. I felt like such a connection with these characters that when what happened, it just really hit me, and I was like, oh man, that's. Whew. So, but I think again, music. I think it was the music, and it doesn't. I don't rarely tear up. But anyway, I ended up on this one. So let's hear your number two choice.
My number two. What was my number two? It was the one I mentioned yesterday. The criminal. I don't want to say underrated. In fact, no, yeah, underrated and overlooked. Unbreakable. One of my, I think maybe my favorite superhero movie of all time. It is the film that M. Night Shyamalan made right after he made The Sixth Sense, which he obviously he was riding a huge high after that movie because it was so successful, and the twist, of course, blew everyone's mind.
He's famous for his twists.
Yes.
At the end of movies.
Yes. Now he's kind of famous for being a bit of a crappy director who always forces into crappy twists.
But he used to be.
But back in his day.
Yeah, in his prime.
Yeah. So everyone was expecting his next movie to have a huge mind-bending twist, and the twist, although it is good in Unbreakable, it isn't the same type of mind-bending twist. It just works very well in the story.
I made a point that maybe the twist was that he didn't put a great twist in, and he just went,
maybe M. Night was actually such a genius.
Yeah.
The twist
So
was
clever.
our own expectations.
Yeah. So clever.
And yeah, this is an absolutely genius movie about it kind of asks the question of what would actually happen if if superheroes actually did exist in the real world. I feel like that's a question that a lot of movies have tried to answer, like movies like Hancock and Chronicle.
Yeah.
But
and when you describe this superhero, it was also interesting being like, what would superheroes actually be like? Because that guy wasn't like some Superman.
No, he was a regular guy, and the one thing that I love about, well, one of the many things I love about the movie is that there isn't like a click moment like Spider-Man discovering his powers, so like suddenly discovering, oh my god, I have these powers. In the movie, he slowly starts to realize that he is unbreakable and that he's never even gotten hurt or gotten ill. And he slowly starts to realize that he's not like everyone else. And the two main characters in this movie played amazingly by Bruce Willis before he completely sacked in his career. And Samuel L. Jackson.
When you described it in terms of again movement, one of them is this unbreakable hero kind of character, and one of them is a wheelchair bound, broken arms and
wheelchair
legs.
bound. The thing with his character is that he's the opposite of the main character.
And
David
so they
Dunn.
move in a very opposite way. One of them can walk around, is completely free with themselves, and then one of them is kind of confined and trapped. Yeah,
which just that dynamic is so good because it builds sympathy for what his name in the movies that he calls himself Mr. Glass. It builds sympathy for Mr. Glass, but it also builds resentment and respect in his character for David Dunn, so much that you can see. I don't want to give it away, but you can see why he feels the way he feels.
Yeah. I like that. So I think if we go on to my second one now.
Yes.
I'm going to keep it fairly brief. I'll just say what it is. We'd already kind of talked about it.
We did.
And it, again, fits with what we think. Bear in mind, the first film was Narnia, so that's kind of like young kid. This one I'd call teenager fantasy.
Yeah.
And it would be Aragon. Massive fan. I've started, but I did read the books. I think I might have one left. And the books are incredible, and I wish more films were made, but I don't think it was received amazingly.
I think the critical reception was fine. I think it just didn't make much money, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, which is a shame. But again, I love movies like that, and it's tough trying to think between, because actually for me it was between Aragon and Avatar.
Yeah,
because they're both amazing. But there's something about Aragon that just felt just more. I mean, Avatar's this kind of big budget kind of. I haven't seen the recent one yet. Actually, I need to. But yeah, as a classic, I've watched it many times. Need to watch it again.
Yeah.
I'd say Aragon.
It's actually been a long time since I've seen Avatar, and I should have researched Aragon in the time between recording, so I could actually talk about it more. But the little I have seen, it just looks like a really fun, like, escapist style movie where you can just escape to this little fantasy
For me,
land.
all of mine are like that. Okay, let's hear your third one, and then we'll get on to mine, and then we'll.
Well, my third one in the original recording we did for this was Reservoir Dogs.
Stop! Have you subscribed yet to the channel? Because we really want you to subscribe.
Subscribe
right now, guys.
Do it.
If you haven't subscribed and you're watching this far, why are you watching this far and not subscribed?
I'm actually not being funny yet. If you don't subscribe, I will break your knees.
Your knees. Okay, that was a threat.
I know.
I am the host of this channel, and it didn't come from me.
Actually, don't confuse us. I know where you live. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We can find your IP addresses
I know where you
as viewers of this channel. So, yeah,
I'm looking at you. Get the camera back on me. No, I know what you're looking. I know who you are, David and Ruth and Steve.
Right. Anyway, moving on from that, Joe, what was your third one?
My third one originally was Reservoir Dogs back when we recorded this yesterday, but I've changed my mind since then because I wanted a bit of a deeper cut.
Okay.
And I decided to go with a movie that its whole purpose of this movie is to be rewatched. And it is it's actually two movies in one, but like they're basically both similar types of movies made by the same person, and those movies are Upstream Color and Primer, made
Never
by
heard of them.
Shane Carruth. He is, well, first of all, he's an absolute piece of garbage. I was really upset to discover, because I was a huge fan of these two movies, I was really upset to discover he's actually a really, really bad person.
Damn.
But separate the art from the artist. He's
Yes.
he is an experimental American filmmaker. He made these two movies. I think Primer was around 2011 or 2013, and Upstream Color might have been 2015. And they are movies that are told mostly out of order. Primer is probably a better example of this. It's a movie about time travel, but
Okay.
it's about these two friends that are just building a project, and as they're building the project, they discover time travel. And it is by far the most complicated time travel plot in any movie.
I mean, time travel is complicated.
It is complicated, but
So-
you have not seen complicated until you've seen Primer. The whole
Okay.
point of it is that you're not meant to understand the story the first time. It's meant to be a film you watch over and over again.
And so you pick up on little details that you might have missed.
Yeah, so slowly you can piece together which elements of the story go together where, and
Oh, interesting.
obviously that's why I would bring it to a desert island. And it's a similar type of thing with Upstream Color. That's also got a very, I wouldn't even say complicated story. It's just told in a very complicated way, and Shane Carruth does not give you a lot to work with to piece it together, which is why you'd have to watch it so many times. But that's obviously the reason why you'd have to watch it so many times, is why I would bring either one of those to a desert island.
Nice. No, I like that. Okay, so my last one, which I would say is more of like an adult fantasy, and that would be Dune. Which
Don't say adult fantasy.
no, oh no, but hold on, no, oh whoa, okay.
I couldn't let that slide.
No, oh man, no, because you're right though. Like my wording on that was awful. That was horrendous from me. So
Oh, boy.
my child, like, you know, when I was a kid, that would have been Narnia. As a teenager, and now I'm grown up.
Should we take a breather?
Yeah, I need a second.
Keep this in.
Breathe. Right.
Okay.
So, what I was going to say is Dune, and I've
Yes.
now started to read the book of it. Most people, and I think it's a fairly common thought, is the books are usually better, generally, to
Yeah.
the films.
Which obviously, as a cinephile, I'm normally a bit resentful of that fact, but it's probably normally true.
What are your thoughts on the Harry Potter books versus films?
Josh, I've read like 3 books in my entire life.
Fair enough. I wonder if you can see my Word Millionaire award on the side over there.
Oh, Josh, don't flex your Word Millionaire
Yeah.
Year 7
Hold
award on me.
Hold
Cool,
on. Where is
blimey.
it? Oh, I think it's not important. It's been moved on to something else. All right, whatever. Anyway, I used to read too much.
Just to clarify, you're talking about the recent Denis Villeneuve.
Yes, I am. Yes, because there was one before that, and you were talking about wanting,
made by big man David Lynch.
a kind of a new, kind of better remake.
Honestly, I was so happy when I saw the first trailer for this movie.
Yeah.
They were making another one.
I'm ready for the second one to come out.
Yeah.
Very excited. I'm going to rewatch the first one and then I'll get on to the second one. And I don't know, I like the escapist feel. I also like when they bring in other kind of characters. So like the Fremen, I like how you've got the different dynamics. And so, I mean, I feel like I always have to keep linking about to movement, but like you can tell class-wise where people are just on the way they hold themselves. It's a very basic acting thing.
Well, something I think is actually really fascinating about the movement of Dune is obviously the movement of the Fremen is a very central part of the story, because they say they have to do... For context, it's probably going to require a bit of context. Dune is set on a sand planet, and they have big sandworms, and the sandworms can sense beats in the sand, and if they feel that, they'll come up and eat you. So the Fremen have a way of getting around this, seeing as they live on the planet and they've gotten used to it. They do a thing called the sand walk, I think, and it's basically these the steps that ensure each movement is like in time, so that the
I really need to watch it again.
so that they won't set off a sandworm, and just the way they move, it communicates so much, because they do it they do this complicated walk so effortlessly, just to show how accustomed to this strange life they've become.
Yeah. I also just love the cast of the film as well.
Cast
It's got
is
a great
so
cast,
good.
brilliant cast. So yeah, those would be my three. That was your three.
Very good three.
So that was our Desert Island disc. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I think you should. And like the video, we love the support.
What did I tell you? We don't want to have to say it again, okay?
You've been told.
Subscribe.
We have your IP address. No, I can't say that.
I can say it. I don't have your. Just have your IP address. I have your address, Tony.
It's my dad.
So let's get on to some questions that I've prepared for you.
Let's do it.
I mean, this is the Movement Theories podcast. I think there's about one in here that really makes you dig deep, but we'll spend more time on that one with Movement.
Sweet.
So we've done your favourite films.
We have.
Let's have just a little
Well,
brief.
not my favourite films, but three
Your
films
top
I
three,
bring to
yes,
a
but
desert
that's
island.
fine. What got you interested in film studies?
There were lots of films that you could technically class as the film that got me into filmmaking. I think obviously The Shining is certainly one you could attribute. You could also say films like Castaway maybe, but weirdly enough, the film that I think is actually I would probably attribute the most with what started my critical thinking of film probably was a random one, and it's Kenneth Branagh's 2018 remake of Murder on the Orient Express. And the reason for that is I went to see it at the cinema, and I absolutely loved it. And was it 2017? I think it was 2017.
I think I've watched it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
I've since rewatched it, and it wasn't as good as I remember. I picked up on a lot more things that I was iffy on this time, but it's still a solid movie. But it was just the first time I had ever considered looking at what critics said about it, and I was just slightly interested, so I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, and then I looked up a film review of it on YouTube, and I stumbled, across a man called Chris Stuckman. And I watched his video on it, and then I watched another one of his videos, and that absolutely sent me down a rabbit hole of watching so many film reviews, so many other film reviewers, like two I would highly recommend are Your Movie Sucks, and that is actually his name. He's like the Gordon Ramsay of,
I feel like you need to improve
He is
your
harsh.
Letterboxd name to something at that level.
I really should.
Yeah.
And Carsten Rundquist is the other one. He's my favourite. He is very insightful and absolutely hilarious at the same time. But
Another really good reviewer that you can find is Joe with 5 E's.
Yes.
Burren. Brilliant.
Joe 5 E's BURREN on Letterboxd. Follow
Which
now.
might probably get changed if you decide to make it more.
Might get changed, but I can't lie. I've been on an absolute roll with the reviews recently. They've been the last few I've pumped out. I don't like that phrasing.
Oh man.
Okay, we're keeping that in. The last few that I've produced.
Yes, what you produced.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Have been absolute bangers. So yeah, go follow me on Letterboxd.
Yeah. How many have you done? Would you say in your lifetime?
I've done. I think it might actually be almost exactly 250.
That's very
at
impressive.
this point.
That is very
I've
impressive.
been doing it since late October of last year, and all of my reviews they range from like 1 paragraph to like 8 paragraphs.
Can I ask you to review something for me now?
Of course.
It's not a film. Review our camerawoman at the back. How good a job do you think she's doing?
I think Kaitlin's doing a wonderful job.
Kaitlin obviously is usually helping co-host, and now she's filming.
Give us a wave, Kaitlin. Give the camera a wave.
Yeah, Spotify people, she's waving at the camera. So, another question that I have for you is about your previous experience. Talk me through short films you've done, your A-levels, drama, stuff like that.
I've only made one short film. I made it for my film studies class. It was just a short little horror, like home invasion style movie. It starred our friend Jacob Perry as the innocent boy who's home alone, and it starred Zach Pike as the evil mad home invader.
Yeah. And most importantly, it starred.
It also starred Josh Cambridge as the savior at the very end of the movie.
I know.
And it's not complete garbage. there are certainly things that I do like about the movie that I still think were great ideas, but there are. It goes to prove that just studying films isn't enough to get a proper knowledge of it. What you need to actually get your hands dirty and actually make a film because there was so many things that I never even considered needs to go into a film. The whole thing was out of focus, and I know if I made it today, I'll make it 100 times better.
Yeah, you were telling me that when you watch films, you kind of just automatically your brain just reviews it. Like you think about what you like, what you don't like, things that are good and bad.
I would say I can turn it off to an extent if it's a movie that I can tell it's okay to turn it off for, like something like Mamma Mia or like. Do you think Mamma Mia really inspired any great philosophical thoughts from anyone, camerawoman Kaitlin? Meryl Streep.
Mamma Mia is one of those films, like yesterday we said.
Mamma Mia is a far cry from Sophie's Choice.
Yeah, I think with Mamma Mia it's one of those films that you can just say, oh, it's just a fun watch.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get away with saying that.
But yeah, I could say similar things about films like what other films am I? This isn't really a diss. Films like Greatest Showman or something like that.
That was I've got some history of Greatest Showman.
The thing we're not going to go into
no.
that. The thing I actually do kind of respect about Greatest Showman, even though on paper it's not a fantastic movie, it's the whole point of the movie is that it's very unapologetic about that it's just about entertainment. Because the whole story is about Barnum ignoring all the critics and just entertaining the masses, which is arguably what the film is doing itself. So I do respect it in that sense, and I do watch it occasionally just if I want to have a nice little laugh.
No, nice. No, I like that. I was also talking to you about, for me with dance, like when I'm watching dance performances, I've got to a point where I just like critique them in my brain or to whoever I'm with, and like I'll always go away watching something, and like without even putting effort into it, I found things that I like, things that I don't like, and I think being able to do that naturally is so useful. Like without even thinking, like you do for films, and just improving kind of your taste. However, like you said, my A-level choreography absolutely sucked. It was awful.
Not true.
Kaitlin disagrees, but I
haven't seen it, so I can't speak on it.
It was very mid. Like there wasn't much pace to it. It didn't move anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. There wasn't any like big climax. The climax I put in was rubbish. And I think that there's so many different reasons for that.
That's what she said.
About starting late. Oh, man. So, Joe, I'm quite interested. What are your aspirations going forward in the future? What things would you like to do? Short term, like maybe next year, because you're taping a gap year, aren't you? Gap year.
Well, my original intention with this gap year was I did like the idea of making a film over the gap year. That's looking less likely as the year goes on. But I could maybe get a screenplay written.
Yes.
Maybe.
Or maybe writing something, or several things that maybe when you're older you could do. Could be really, really cool.
Or could be one of the many short films I make in uni.
Yes.
But yes, I am going to university at London Southbank.
Very exciting.
In almost exactly a year. I can't wait for it. I'm going to be studying film and television studies, and I can't wait.
That sounds like it. Does
Even though I'm
sound
taking a
perfect
gap year, and it's definitely a good idea. I want to go to university so bad.
Yeah, and we've been talking about uni, and I go away in like 2-3 days, which is.
We'll miss you.
Oh, yeah. By the time this is out, I'm going to be in London. I'm going to be in Sidcup. When you're watching this right now, by the way, if you're not subscribed, I mean, come on, guys, you're far enough into the episode. I know, but by the time this is out, I'm gonna be with my new roommate/roommates. I don't know if we're gonna have a third or not.
Replacing us.
Yeah, and yeah, it's gonna be sad. But
stop this fake crying now.
Yeah, Kaitlin's gonna start actually crying.
Cringe.
But yeah, so after then university, what different things would you like to do? Because I have like a whole set of doors that I'd like to go down each of them.
I mean, the ideal like dream is become a director. Probably not going to happen. I might direct a film or two in my life, But I doubt I'll ever become a big Hollywood director, even though that is obviously the dream. But I want to work something in film, be it film journalism or actually working on a film set. I don't care. I need to do something to do with film.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I've been, not to make this about me, I think I've come to the realization that the job that I think I might love to do absolutely the most is YouTube. Because when we think about these big budget, like, if we think of the stuff the Sidemen are doing, these massive shoots, the big performances they do every single week, if I get to a point in my life where I could do YouTube with a group on that scale, I mean, I think that competes with mainstream theatre and television. I mean, the stuff they're doing is like, people who want to work in television would go on to doing stuff that actually these guys are doing through YouTube. I genuinely think I would have so much fun in a group making videos on like, this is like 10 years down the line, getting to like this big scale, and I think that would be such a fun job.
I think
obviously still doing performance.
Obviously, it's a very, there's a lot of luck involved in getting into that, but I think this new digital age, it's both a blessing and a curse, because it means that so many people have access to create content so easily now, which is great because it's opened up a lot of opportunities, but it's also not great because it means anyone can just make content. So it's filled with crap.
I think
which is why it does ensure that you've got to put a lot of effort into be a cut above the rest.
Yeah, something I've noticed, and from podcasts I listen to, obviously this is a podcast, I like listening to podcasts, that's why I do one. But something that I've noticed is that since kind of the rise of TikTok and kind of YouTube Shorts competing with that, there are loads of creators out there with many millions of followers. However, for a lot of them, that doesn't mean anything because they don't have a community. If you think about the Sidemen, they have a massive community. They sold out 60,000 tickets out of their charity match. Could have been instantly if Ticketmaster was better. And like, they've actually built a really solid community. Some people just go viral from doing cringy things on challenges and stuff. And like, there's nothing really behind that. And so I think what we're going to start seeing is the people who are going to really thrive are the ones who really focus around the community they build.
I think it's all very well and good making content for the lowest common denominator, but a creator who I actually think I do think that does in the long run, it will make your career in YouTube suffer, because I point at Muselk as an example of this.
Okay, yeah.
Muselk was very much someone who chased gaming trends. He would always play the most popular game at the time, and he would play nothing else. And for that, he didn't really become as much of a well-known character as I think his roommate. I don't know whether Laserbeam is his roommate or not, but Laserbeam. Laserbeam's someone who actually built his brand around his actual character, and he branched out and collabed with other people. And Muselk, he just isn't as much of a character as
That's the thing. You've got to be a character. You've got to be acting. You've got to be performing, even if it's just making a bigger version of yourself.
Laserbeam gained followers because of his personality. Muselk gained followers because he chased trends.
Yeah, and when you see the conversion now, I mean, Laserbeam is in Mr. Beast videos, Sidemen videos all the time. Like, he's not posting as frequently, but he's still a very big face.
Did you see that crazy Mr. Beast video he was on where they were just in the ocean?
Yes,
for a
I
week?
saw that.
That was insane.
I know. And like because Mr. Beast videos are usually so high scaled, like 50 cameras, whatever. This one was Tariq, who's playing in the charity match, which is so random, so funny. I was like, sorry, they're cameraman, and then they had a couple GoPros, and on the side of their raft they have this big tower with a camera kind of waterproofed in there, and that was it. Or a drone,
and they just had building supplies.
Yeah, and it was so different to what I was used to. I was like, this is really interesting, but it's the way that even though they had less on the filmmaking side of things, even though they had kind of less going on, it was still really entertaining because of their characters, especially Laserbeam, who was just there. Laserbeam was also in Free Guy, the Ryan Reynolds film, which, I mean, I'm finding it really interesting how the different sources of media are kind of crossing over, when you got kind of YouTube going into mainstream Hollywood.
I remember we had a really good conversation about this in the last podcast, but I can't remember exactly what it was we said.
No, it basically was about kind of this age of these kind of celebrities and faces kind of collaborating.
Yeah, I remember what it was. I was talking about how I haven't seen Free Guy, but my understanding is that it's the thing I admire about it is how it's very aware of the culture of today, which is something a lot of film reps at the moment are so ignorant of.
I think that's because of Ryan Reynolds, like him as a person. I mean, he bought a football club.
Ryan Reynolds knows. I mean, obviously everyone loves him, but everyone loves him because he knows how to play the audience.
Yes,
he knows how to get people to love him.
Let's kind of start to wrap up. Quickly, do you have any hot takes?
Hot takes. What was the one I had last time? Yeah, Bird Box sucks. That movie that everyone loved in lockdown. Yeah. It's so bad. I need to talk about this for a sec.
Okay.
Bird Box. I want to clarify that obviously this should go without saying. If you like Bird Box, you like Bird Box. I don't want to say you can't like Bird Box. But fuck. That's movie. I don't understand how it became that big. It is one of the worst scripts I have ever seen. It is a script that should be handled with so much subtlety because it's about a movie about monsters that you can't see. The terror should be so subtle. It should be suggestive and it's so it tells you everything. There is no subtleties to the script. I brought this example up last time, but the two characters in the movie, there's a drug dealer and a cop who are both like thrust into the same like survival area. The first scene, we don't like each other because we're opposite sides of the crime spectrum, and we don't like each other. The next scene they're in, they're having sex.
Yeah.
And the last scene they're in, they run off together with the car. This is awful for so many reasons. It is such an unsubtle, lazy way of showing how humanity has degraded over time.
It's the type of way that I would do as an 18-year-old with no experience. It's the type of way that I'd be like, oh, that's quite cool. Yeah, let's get two opposite people and put them in a room, and then as the scene progresses, they then do things that you wouldn't expect. Like, that's what I'd kind of come up with.
The thing is, I'm not even against the idea. I think the idea could have worked. The main problem was just that they were in 3 scenes together. It felt so forced that it felt like it didn't feel like they were actual characters. Yeah. It felt like they were just put in there to make that message.
If those scenes had been removed, would it have impacted the film? If those scenes had been removed, would it have impacted the film?
The only way in which it would have impacted the film is they just use them as a plot device to steal the car, and it's just so they can't the other characters can't use the car anymore. They're only ever used as plot devices and never as actual characters. Bird Box,
So it's your hot take.
Yeah, it genuinely. I mean, it's not really a hot take in like the movie sphere. I mean, not many people, like critics and stuff, loved Bird Box, but I genuinely I have no idea how it got that famous. Mm-hmm. If you want a movie with a similar type of premise, watch A Quiet Place Part 2. It's much better.
I thought thought it was like some sort of like same universe sequel type thing. I thought it was made by the same people.
Nah.
Like they're like, oh, one film you can't hear them, and they were like, okay, and then they thought maybe they'd do the second one as you can't see them.
I think what happened was, I may be wrong on this, but I think A Quiet Place came out before Bird Box, and it was relatively big, and Netflix wanted to cash in on this, so Bird Box was already a pre-written book, so they just found it and made an adaptation of it, and obviously it became huge.
Yeah.
So
like
yeah,
this happen. Yeah, trends, virality. You never know, kind of what's going to
horror movies that force you to take away one of your senses.
Yeah. Seems like that was pretty effective. I wonder what the next one's going to be, if there's going to be a next one like that. So about movement, how can good direction enhance some of the movement in films? We've talked a lot about kind of camera angles, the editing, and kind of like choreography of things. Anything else that you want to kind of add on to that?
Well, I think what I said before was the job of a director is to enhance the actors. That is the main the main job of a director. While they are the big mastermind behind the whole film, the actors should always be their main focus. And there are so many ways in which they could do that. They change their performance by line delivery. Normally, the director needs to understand the characters and the script so that they can communicate that to the actors. But in terms of movement, camera work in movies does miracles for the actors. I think the example I cited last time we recorded this was Suspiria, the 2018 remake. And the scene in question that I referenced was the scene in which it's a film about a ballet school that's secretly being run by witches. And the scene in which I'm referring to is the scene where one of the students has been cursed by the one of the witches, and she's sent into a separate room and to all the other students, and it's almost like she's been binded to the main character, and the main character starts to do her dance, and there's a bit in her dance where she jumps up and down. And each strike of her feet against the floor, not only is the only sound that can be heard is her feet banging against the floor, which gives it such impact. And it cuts to the girl in the other room, and you can see how the beats of her feet are damaging her.
Because the witches have got some sort of
they've
magic.
like binded their souls so that whenever the main character moves, it like hurts the
like
other
voodoo type. Magic.
Yeah, kind of like that. But not only that, but every time her feet hit the floor, the camera cuts closer and closer and closer, highlighting her feet, and that's the pressure point
this
of the
intensity.
scene. Yeah, it just ups the tension, and you see how the camera flows around the girl in the other room, and how it shows how all different parts of her body are getting dislocated. And
I really like camera work in movies that have dance. And a dance element of some point. I think John Wick 4. I think it's the most recent one. Have you watched it?
Yes, I have. It was I think the best of the series.
And you've got one of his the family, his old family that he joined again. There's the whole bit of the ballet dancers.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That's number 3.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I watched 4 on the plane. From Uganda, and I think I must have watched 3 before that then. Anyway, yes, I really like the way the camera work can be used for dance in theatre, and I'd like to see it more.
Yeah, John Wick, it's an absolute study in just fantastic direction and action. The camera in an action scene is so important. It needs to be so kinetic, and it needs to follow the actors. One of my favourite uses of the camera in action scenes is the main example I can think of is in Lee Winnell's films, namely Upgrade. Upgrade and The Invisible Man. For an example, there's a scene in Upgrade where a man gets like slammed down against a table, and he gets brought back up, and the camera follows the man's face, and just connecting the audience to the characters like that through the camera is so effective. Yeah,
nice. And then I have this coming up. Maybe this links to Bird Box, but see if you can think of another one. If you could redirect any film, put your own spin on it, what film would that be?
This is an interesting question. I can't remember what I said.
Oh, we were talking about Bird Box last time.
Yeah,
so think of something new.
I mean, obviously, Bird Box, I would just make it much more subtle. But I'm going to go an unconventional route in this. There is an episode of Rick and Morty.
Okay.
But no, hear me out. It's a pretty good episode. It was in the most recent series. But the thing that angered me so much about it was that it is such a genius premise for like a horror thriller movie, and I am so pissed that I didn't think about it and that I couldn't make that into like an actual film.
Okay.
It's called the Night People. Essentially, the family get what they call night people. When they're asleep, they get their bodies to do certain tasks. Like, they get their sleeping bodies to get up out of bed and, like, do 100 crunches so they get abs.
That's actually kind of interesting.
But then their night people start to rebel, so they can't fall asleep. Otherwise, they'll be taken over again. I think that is such an ingenious premise because you are the act. It means they are the villains, and not only that, the villains are such a threat, but they could never. But the main characters couldn't actually have any feasible way to harm them because they're not only never in the same room together technically, but God, it's just such an ingenious premise, and I almost feel like it was just wasted on an episode of Rick and Morty.
Yes. Yeah.
I would love to make that into an actual film.
Well, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be counted as like
a spiritual successor?
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I think we're gonna stop it there.
Yeah.
And yeah, today is the last recording day before we go, and then the team will be. Well, not together, which is quite sad.
No.
But if you have made it this far, if you're on Spotify, leave us some sort of review. We'd really appreciate that. And YouTube listeners, comment down below. I mean, if you made it this far, come on, you must have enjoyed the episode. So give it a like, subscribe if you haven't.
And the best way to support this channel is actually a bit of an unconventional way. You want to go on Letterboxed to Joe Burren, that's JOOOOBURREN, and click follow.
What happened
on
to the E's?
Letterboxd.
Yeah, the E's all went.
It's a 5 E's.
You went JOOOOOO.
No, it's JOEEEEE.
Yes, so
5 E's, BURREN. That's
yeah. And maybe that will change to something more
It
professional.
might be Jew.
might do.
No.
Might do.
Yeah, so anyway, thank you very much for listening to this episode. We really appreciate it. We're super proud of how we've done the last couple months. You can't see just from YouTube's side of things, but we post on TikTok and Facebook, everywhere. And we're really proud of what we've done. So we want to continue doing it and hopefully improve every couple months. And that would be great. So thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
And we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.